The August 2019 City of Columbia Planning Commission meeting. I'd like to welcome all Planning Commission members, staff, and guests. At this time, would everyone please turn their cell phones and PDAs to the silent or vibrate mode. The administrator will now proceed with the roll call.
Here.
Here. Thank you. I'd like to briefly review the meeting format. Applicants with requests before the Planning Commission are allotted a presentation time of 10 minutes. This time should include, but is not limited to, an overview of the project, case history, and any pertinent meetings held regarding the request. This time also includes all persons presenting information on behalf of the applicant, such as attorneys, engineers, and architects. This time limit does not include any questions asked by the Planning Commission or staff regarding requests. Minutes of the general public are given the opportunity to address their concerns in intervals of 2 minutes. The administrator has a timer and will make presenters aware of when their time has expired. The Planning Commission reserves the right to amend these procedures on a case-by-case basis. The consent agenda. The Planning Commission uses the consent agenda to approve non-controversial or routine matters by a single motion and vote. Examples of such items include approval of site plans, annexations, and street names. If a member of the Planning Commission or the general public would like to discuss an item on the consent agenda, then that item is removed from the consent agenda and considered during the meeting. The Planning Commission then approves the remaining consent agenda items. The administrator will now read the consent agenda.
This evening, your consent agenda consists of 3 particular items. They are all a comprehensive plan map amendment and zoning map amendment for pending annexations. And they include, I forgot the approval of the minutes of July 8th is your first item. And then going back to item number 2, that is an annexation for 68.4 acres on Lockman Road. And then item number 3 is an annexation and map and zoning amendment for 400 North Beltline Boulevard, and 0.07 acres East Chapel Drive. And your fourth item, which is also a two map amendments and annexation, is 1103 Ferguson Street. That would be the completion of your consent agenda this evening.
Thank you. Do any commission members or guests today wish to have items on the consent agenda removed and placed on the regular agenda? I'd like to ask for a motion, please, to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone disapprove? Consent agenda is approved. We will now proceed with the regular agenda.
Your regular agenda this evening begins with item number 6 on your agenda. And just to note, item number 5, which was originally noticed on the draft agenda that was sent out, has been deferred by the applicant. So item number 6 this evening is a comprehensive plan amendment, future land use map amendment for 11.58 acres west/south Ferguson Street. This would be the property over by the old ball field off of Assembly. It consists of a city parcel as well as part of the SCANA/Dominion property.
Do any commissioners have any questions for staff? And would the applicant like to come forward? And if everyone, I'd like to remind you to please state your name clearly before speaking.
Hello, my name is Andrew Weddle. I represent Ballpark LLC, the developer in this property. So right now we have a light industrial zoning, and you notice it's in the floodplain. So part of the conditions preceding, we are under contract with the city as well as SCANA on this property. And part of what we have to do to make this property viable for an MX1 mixed-use zoning is to mitigate the flooding in the neighborhood. Rocky Branch, as you know, floods and has for a number of years. So we're basically bringing or attempting to bring down the floodplain by about 4 feet, which includes, if you will, just clearing a bunch of choke points along the Rocky Branch, which should benefit the community, the local community, and possibly others, just to create the flow of water. And so we find it to be and we were told through working with the staff who's been very helpful, a nice way to have a corridor coming into the city, which is right now kind of an industrial corridor. You may or may not know this, it may not be important, but the university has bought the property across the street, the other portion of the SCANA property. And so we hope to develop this property into a mixed-use residential and retail, principally residential, but with retail, mixed use, and makes significant improvements to the Rocky Branch to mitigate the flooding, as well as improvements along Assembly Street and Ferguson Street.
So this property is in the floodplain now, is that?
Portions of it.
Portions, the one I see. Okay.
So there's 2 items on here for the same project on your agenda, that item number 6 and item number 7. Item number 6 is amending the land use plan. You'll see on the map that's up on the screen or on your tablets, the front half of the property, the 2 properties closest to Assembly, which is at the top of your map, is Activity Center 2. Then the bulk of the parcel is the Urban Core Activity Center 1. And then you'll see Hamrick Street, which is running towards sort of from the bottom right corner into this particular property. And you'll see there's a piece of the property that's UCMR3. And what staff is recommending to coordinate with the rezoning is to change that particular area to the land use plan that matches what that zoning would be.
Is that the new plan that we're looking at? How does
Not the
that?
site plan. So you have the land use, the future land use plan,
Right.
which this particular land use was categorized when we did the Mill District plan a couple years ago. You'll recall that we adopted a plan for that neighborhood, and in that was a land use plan. And so this land use plan called for mixed residential there, but that doesn't quite coordinate with the zoning, so we try to always get those things coordinated. So this one little sliver that you see on your screen highlighted in blue is the part of the land use map we need to amend. And then when we get to item number 7, we'll more specifically talk about the zoning. If you want to talk about both of them at the same time, we certainly could also talk about the zoning. It's just that if we want, at the end of your conversation, we would just need 2 different motions.
I think we can combine both of the 6 and 7 if.
Sure.
And I just want to be clear, I think I heard you indicate that some improvements are required per this conversation with you. That's really a condition of your purchase agreement, correct? It's not really related to the zoning or the land use.
No, it is not, but it is a condition of the purchase agreement.
I thought that was the case. I just want to make sure that, yeah. So we're simply talking about land use reclassification and a zoning.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to come forward and
Before we open up to the public, I just want to, since we're going to talk about both of them, on your screen up and on your tablets is the area to be proposed to be rezoned. It's currently M1, and that would be being proposed to be rezoned to MX1.
to what one?
MX1, mixed use. So going from basic industrial to more of a mixed use that allows
That won't
for-
affect any of these other properties around it, will it, in the future?
No, I don't believe so. Usually what happens is the other use, some of the industrial properties off of Ferguson, if they were to redevelop, they may have a larger buffer requirement or something like that. But they're all, the ones that are adjacent are fully developed at the moment, so.
Would anyone else like to come forward?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. Robert Giles, my name. I live at 314 Pall Mall Street in the Granby Mill Village, and I'm appearing on behalf of the Mill District Alliance that has been involved in Mill Village planning for quite some time. I want to thank the developer who has met with the neighborhood extensively, but there are a number of serious questions that we have going forward with this project that relate to the larger Mill District plan. And I would commend the Planning Commission's attention to the Capital City Mill District area and corridor plan adopted by the city and the county in 2017, particularly the provisions in that plan that appear at pages 79 through 82, and the implementation recommendations appearing at pages 91 and 92. And those provisions of the plan generally address the two areas of concern that we have. And one is the connectivity or lack thereof between this project site and the mill community, which is essentially the reason for our long-term support for the development of this project, is the idea that there would be non-vehicular bike and ped connectivity between the Mill District and ultimately the riverfront where the Three Rivers Greenway exists, and Assembly Street through this site. And that's the Rocky Branch Greenway. That's a project that I've worked on since 2011. The second is the related question of the restoration or impacts of this project on Rocky Branch. Our neighborhoods have been involved in a Rocky Branch watershed alliance that has advocated for improvements of water quality and stream functioning on Rocky Branch, essentially urban stream restoration. And we have serious concerns about whether or not the flood control measures in this proposal are compatible with stream restoration. So I would ask that as you go forward with reviewing not only these zoning and land use category changes, but later the site plan review for this project, that you keep in mind the objectives that the city and the county have embraced in the adoption of our Capital City Mill District area and corridor plan. And I look forward to working with the city staff and with the developer to attempt to reconcile some of these concerns we have before the final consideration of the site plan in this case, and look forward to working with you and others as the site plan review comes before you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to come forward? Okay. I'd like to have a motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we recommend the amendment of Chapter 8.3 of the Columbia Plan 2018 Future Land Use Map to modify the land use classification from Urban Core Mixed Residential Type 3 to Urban Core Neighborhood Activity Center.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion's approved. Now, that was on number 6, correct?
Correct.
Yep.
Can I have a motion on number 7, please?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a recommendation to rezone the parcels from Light Industrial District floodplain area to Mixed-Use Corridor Neighborhood District floodplain area.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion's approved. If there is, we've covered them all. If there's no other business, I'd like to call for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.